All right, welcome everybody. One of the questions that came up to Greg and myself was buying versus renting, especially while considering inflation. Greg, you want to point out what you saw back in the early 80s with inflation rolling and kind of in this category, should I buy or should I rent?
When inflation hits hard enough, 1980 and 81, 12.5, 13.2% inflation. It rocked the world. A lot of doctors today are selling practices from buildings they own that were bought during that inflation upsurge. And those buildings went through good times and bad times. If you can't save money to save your life, and you buy a home and a building, and the end of the day, you pull out $3 million of equity because you're 68 years old or whatever. Well, I got to say, you won in your own way. You would have lost had you done anything else.
Right.
Especially if you have a bunch of relatives that know how to wheedle you out of your savings. From our time in coaching, and Wes, I'll ask you to comment on this. I couldn't argue that a lot of doctors seem to be winning. What they realized, though, in time was that these buildings really needed to be upgraded within 5 years. There was a path cut in the carpet, and a lot of stuff was dingy, and they were stuck there. So, okay, maybe they would upgrade it one more time. Our problem is that capacity blockages to growth, are very subtle. And these doctors would rule out in their mind the idea that maybe the size of my office is a problem. And that's because at one time they built it thinking this is a forever office. It'll take me from now to forever.
That's the knock in terms of owning and deciding to buy a practice is you're stuck there. And even though you think you've built it big enough, you can't imagine being any bigger, you're stuck there, and things change and areas change. I wouldn't go for buying a practice unless I could have 10 or more operatories in it. So that's the con against owning your own practice. And the pro, like you said, was, hey, if you can't save, and this is kind of like a forced savings for you, it kind of builds up the equity for you. That's the other side of it. Is it forces you to save this money, but we have people do both, and I really don't see major differences in net worth because of a building in the end. It's really on how the practice runs.
Thanks for listening.